Alright, what's up everybody? So today I am going to continue with the Master Game Opening Mistake series, and we're going to continue with D4 and see what other traps exist in a position depending on specific moves. But before going into it, just something that I've started doing recently is I'm asking for feedback. Whoever watches this video, if you have any thoughts as to the image, sound, or anything like that, please do let me know. I'm trying to improve. I'm trying to provide better content. So if you have any thoughts, please let me know. And if you don't have any specific thoughts, but you do like the video, make sure to like and consider subscribing. All right, so let's turn the music on. And without further ado, let's get into it. So the first game I decided to bring to you here was played in Salonika in Greece in 1984. And the two opponents here, the person with the white pieces is Hamouda Ibrahim, and the person with the black pieces is Herald Anderson. And continuing the theme from last couple of videos, we have D4 and we have the Mykonos defense, which is knight to C6. And like we mentioned earlier, usually when black plays this move, you want to advance this pawn to really ask what this knight is doing, which is actually going to be very well illustrated in this game. So white does play D5, and here what black should do if he plays the Mykonos defense is he should go knight to E5 and maybe reroute this knight here, like if something like this happens, if white really feels like winning a lot of tempos and pushing pawns. But usually you have to be careful playing something like this and really harassing this knight around, because if you get your pawns overextended, they can become a liability because your pieces aren't yet developed to support them. But nevertheless, this is what black should play. But black decides to play knight to a5, and white is already quite a bit better here. I'm not sure what the justification behind this move is, because like where is the knight going? Maybe the knight is thinking of coming here, but white's next move is stops that. And here maybe you should play something like this. Maybe you should consider playing some. It's difficult. I would say that only this move or maybe even this move they're kind of okay. But well, I mentioned that this move is okay. Maybe this move was better, but this move completely loses the game for one very specific reason. And white here just played b4, attacking the knight, and there is nowhere for the knight to go. The knight can't go here. The knight can't go here because this pawn is in the way. Obviously the knight can't go here. And the knight can't go here either because the bishop is just going to capture it. Once we move this pawn, this bishop is completely able to capture. And black resigned in this position because he realized that he's just losing a knight here and out of the opening. So remember, these are master games. This is likely to be a FIDE master or an international master here in Herald Anderson, and he lost within 4 moves. So you really have to be careful whenever you play this move and you're moving your knight to the edge. Within the first 2 moves, you have to be really careful, and you have to really know what you're doing. Just hoping to take your opponent out of theory and confuse them is not enough, because you're likely to confuse yourself. The best moves the engine gives here are c6, white takes, and just developing your knight. But of course, this is just a completely losing position. So let's just go back to it one more time. Just developing this knight, you can already get a lot of advantage with white by playing this move. Knight goes here. White decides to control this square with a bishop to take away this square in the future in case black makes a mistake, just like he did in the game. And after this mistake, you just win the knight with what we've shown. So just a really nice miniature to get us started. Let's move on to the next game. So this game was played in Budapest, Hungary in 1916. So actually during the First World War, which is interesting. But anyway, so the person with white pieces is Janos Heltay, and the person with black pieces is Allan Janny, or Janny. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, I'm sorry. So continuing with the theme, we have d4, but here white responds with e5, which is the angled gambit. And when I used to play bullet when I was like 1100 or 1200, I played this a lot and I won a lot of games just using this because people don't know what to do with this. But here, the best move recommended by the engine is actually taking this pawn. And it gives white a strong advantage. You would be plus 1.3 as white if you do this, in case, and you, of course, you have to play properly, but this already gives you a better position. But in this game, white decided to play d5 and push his pawn further, control more space in his opponent's camp. And this is by far the weirdest game. There are a lot of moves here that I would never play. But that makes it even more interesting in my opinion. So white responded with c4, just supporting this pawn, controlling a bit more space, not allowing black to easily develop. I mean, black can easily develop, but if you allow white time, white is going to build up a big pawn chain here, and it will be hard to break down, I think. But that's exactly what black does actually. Black just decides to develop, so does white. This position is a bit better for black according to the engine, but it's relatively even. Black just continues developing, and so does white, attacking this pawn and developing a piece. Black just castles, gives up a pawn, but it might be difficult. If you capture this pawn, your king is still in the center. Black is going to attack your knight with the rook, and then you might have some difficulties because a move like this will happen, and then as I said, there could be sacrifices on the cards. Better probably not to take this pawn, and white doesn't. But actually white plays a3, and a3 already gives the edge to black. It's not quite clear why a3 gives the edge to black, but the top move here was actually e3. So instead of these a3, you should play e3, because this numbs the bishop's power over this diagonal, doesn't allow for any sacrifices here in the future. But okay, white played a3. So now black defends this pawn because it was under attack with d6, and white plays b4, and black just simply moves the bishop out all the way, still controlling this diagonal. This isn't really a threat. White decides to develop. So as soon as black pushes this pawn here, which he might do to dislodge this knight, this bishop becomes incredibly powerful on this diagonal, especially because it will be difficult for this bishop to get back. Knight is controlling, bishop will be controlling once this knight moves. So it really makes it difficult for black to potentially execute this e5 move. And that's why we have f4. So f4 is saying, okay, I have a very big pawn chain here, and your bishop is not going to get anything done on this diagonal. So yeah, and I'm just gaining even more space. It's going to be difficult for you to do anything. And here white played knight to g5, maybe hoping to put his knight on this diagonal and make a strong pawn. And I don't know, this move for me is difficult to explain, and in fact this is a losing move because black just simply played bishop to f2 check, and if you just move here, black is going to get a great outpost for his bishop. And actually, if you move here, maybe there's even something like this possible, and you just lost the pawn, your king will be in the middle of the board, you'll be completely losing. So of course, as white, you have to pretend like this wasn't a blunder at least, and hope that it wasn't actually. And you just take with the king. So king takes on f2, and now of course knight takes on g4. Once you move this knight here under the mask of the queen, this check wins back the piece, and now you're up a pawn, and your opponent's king is in a compromised position. So of course black played king to g1. I mean, at this point it doesn't really matter where you go, king to g1 or king to e1 or king to g1. You're sort of losing anyway. So now black of course just captured the pawn, and here white played h4, and h4 is sort of like it's like a nothing move. It's just like a spite move. Okay, I'm just going to attack your queen and hope that maybe I will find, like, I don't know, some tactics later on. But there's an absolutely savage move here. You'd think that you have to move the queen out of the way, because I mean it's attacked by a pawn. You might lose a queen for a pawn. But actually, in this position, black played the best move and white instantly resigned, and that move is f3. And f3 is such a great move, because if you take the queen now, I'm just going to play f2, and this is checkmate, because your king has nowhere to go, and this square is taken by the knight, and the knight is also protecting the pawn, which is giving the check, so this would be checkmate. And after this f3 move, white resigned, because there's literally nothing to do. So the best move according to the engine here for white is rook to h3. And rook to h3 is an idea that you're simply giving this square for the king. So if white was to play this is no longer checkmate, because you can just move out of the way. But this is completely losing for black. For white, white is going to suffer. You already have a beautiful passed pawn that is defended by the rook and by the knight. Like maybe even something like this is possible, and maybe even moving the knight, attacking the rook. There are a lot of things here that you can do, and of course black is completely winning. So if we go back quickly through the game, it's sort of quiet developing moves both sides. Like there are some positional mistakes, but nothing. It's still a fighting game. Nothing crazy has happened so far. But this already opens up the opportunity. The black didn't take it here, but this move already allows white to go for something like this. But it's a very difficult line, and it wasn't played in the game. And I am reviewing master games, so I'm not going to show all of them. So now the mistake happens. So this is definitely a mistake. As we said, this moves under the mask of the bishop with the knight jump over here. Maybe you could even go immediately here, but it's not as strong, definitely, because you can just move the knight out of the way, and you do lose the pawn, but it's not as bad. So what black did is a lot more forcing, and black just played bishop takes on f2. And that was it. So this move with the knight over here is definitely not the best what you can do. And this just an absolutely savage move to finish the game and laugh in white's face and say, "Okay, take my queen. I'm going to checkmate you." So very, very interesting. Always be careful with playing non-standard openings like this, and not accepting the gambit. Like, as the saying goes, the best way to refute the gambit is to accept it. So yeah, so this move, knight to f3, knight to g5, sorry, is really a big blunder. I'm just going to show it again because I'm trying to remember these positions as well as I can, so that I can use them for my game, and I advise you to do the same. But okay, let's move on to the last game and the longest game. And then this game was played by Alexandr Alekhine with the white pieces. This isn't the move. I don't know why I did that. And Genry Lovewell on the black side of the board. And this game was played in Providence in France in 1923. For anybody who is new to chess, Alexandr Alekhine is very famous. He was a world champion for a number of years, don't remember how many years, which he only lost to, I believe, Jose Raul Capablanca. So I think Alekhine is definitely a very strong player, and makes it very interesting to see how he deals with certain positions. So here we have the angled gambit again, and as we mentioned last time, the best move for white is to capture the pawn. So what do you think Alexandr Alekhine does? Yes, of course he captures the pawn because he knows what he's doing. And black decides to attack the pawn in hopes of recapturing it. Well, white simply, this is always a useful move, and in this case this move also guards this pawn, so there's really nothing better to do. And according this next black's move, according to the engine, isn't the best. Apparently queen to e7, just further attacking this pawn, trying to pick it up, was better. It leads to white being a little bit better, but not quite as much better as with this bishop to a c5 move right away. So white just preemptively further defends his pawn. So if you move something, so if you play this now, I have nothing to worry about. So white plays knight g to e7. And white plays e3. If you remember in the last video that I showed you, in the last game rather, this is always a threat. Like, okay, this knight isn't here to make any jumps to here or here with check, but still it's always a useful move to numb this bishop's power, but also allow your bishop to develop. So black just castles here, and white keeps developing, just naturally developing. These are definitely some of the best moves. There's absolutely nothing wrong with them. This is how you should play. You're already in a better position, you're up a pawn. Okay, your opponent is developing, but so are you. You're getting your forces into the game, sort of getting all your pieces into the game to attack the king or to make a breakthrough, and have support from all your powerful pieces so that you can really generate an attack. Okay, and black plays knight to g6, so that was the idea, from here to attack this bishop. And if I was playing, I'd probably go something like this to preserve my bishop, but Alexandr Alekhine decides that it's okay to lose this bishop, because if white takes it, this is just really going to cement this pawn, and I want to move away from castling where this rook is going to defend this pawn, making this bishop much less powerful. So black takes, there's nothing better to do, so black has now the bishop pair, but if he can do anything with it is another question. And here black decided to play a rook to e8. According to the engine, d6 instead was the best response, probably trying to break up these pawns here. Even if you undouble the pawns, you really want to not allow white to keep such a strong pawn force in the center here. But black decided to play a rook to e8, and here there is a tactic, just bishop takes on h7. It's a common tactic in a lot of positions, and here this is definitely a big response. So definitely rook to e8 was slow, and it doesn't work. Just to see why the same continuation doesn't work with d6, let's explore this option. Let's do the same thing here, where black captures, which is what black did in the game anyway. Now you give a check, and black moves back. And what is the difference? Queen is threatening mate, okay, and g6. So if this move wasn't yet played, if this was here, how is this different? Oh, you can go here. So now the bishop is controlling here, so you cannot reroute your queen and threaten checkmate nonetheless with the queen. Very interesting. So this defense works and the previous one doesn't, because now the bishop is controlling this diagonal. But in the game, bishop is not controlling this diagonal, so white recaptured with the queen, and now black decided, black decided, not this. So white gave a check with the knight, and then white moves back, black moved back, and white went queen to h5, threatening some nasty checks here. Maybe like this and this, then pick up this pawn. You see, and there's really not much for black to do. This is already completely losing. It's just a matter of precise game. Like even this is a threat, of course, because the knight and the queen are both attacking it. So black decides to capture the knight. Now this is no longer a threat because a knight controls, and if you go something like this, I take with my rook, which is a check, and now you're, let's just show this. If you do that and I go here, this is a check, so you have no time for any business like that, and you have to do something. I don't know, let's say you block with the knight. Let's just and you can just pick up the knight with the queen. The rook protects the queen. There is nothing for white to do anymore. But white, of course, did not play this move. White played queen to h7 check, and after the king moved, white played queen to h8 check. And actually, in this position, black resigned because there's just nothing to do at all. If you move here, which is the best, the only move recommended by the engine. Of course, now the queen is attacked. You have no time to pick up the knight, but you can just take the pawn here. And now your pawn is attacking the knight. Your king is not allowing, because this king is blocking this rook. Any knight jumps are useless. And if you move the knight, I'm just going to checkmate you very quickly like this. Maybe you go here, I go here. Yes, you can move, but I will checkmate you sooner or later if you do something like this. So the best defense according to the engine is to play d6 here and just defend the knight, takes, and then I don't know, you can take, but this is completely lost. So let's go back to the mistake, and not here, and not even here. So the mistake occurred when this happened. So this is a big mistake, and as we've shown, you should play this. First of all, you're trying to break up your opponent's structure, but second of all, your bishop is now controlling this diagonal. So once you take and give a check, and if the king moves out of the way, you cannot easily go here with the queen. So it's very important. So let's explore this one more time. So what happened in the game was bishop takes, and now black is just completely losing here, of course. But as we mentioned, what happens if black plays the best defense possible, which is d6, and this position is slightly better for white. It's +1, so an equivalent of being up a pawn, but it's nothing like what happened in the game. And let's explore one more time why this is so good and why this specifically doesn't work. So this is a losing move for white because you give away your bishop for a pawn, and even though you think you're attacking, there is no attack just yet, because if you go here, which is the best engine move, like if you go here, actually what happens if you go here? So we've discussed what happens if you go here at threatening checkmate here. You play g6 and you cannot transfer your queen to the lever checkmate nonetheless because the bishop covers this diagonal. But before finishing the video, let's see what happens if white played something like this. What's the response? Aha, you just simply blocks the queen's threat, and again this move is possible because you move this pawn, and yeah, now there is nothing for white to do. And in fact, it says that the best move is queenside castles here to prevent white from taking, because the queen would be under attack. Very interesting. So we can see why a seemingly quiet move, so this is a mistake, a seemingly quiet move actually works because it frees the piece to control this diagonal, which is crucial to prevent this attack from coming in on this file with the knight and the queen. So I hope that was an enjoyable video. Again, as I mentioned in the beginning, if you didn't like something, please do let me know what I can make better, what could be improved, and if you do like it, please like and subscribe down below. I would very much appreciate it. So thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next video.